Price of freedom is death. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and my sisters. Welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I'm your host, Afro Elite. Before we get started, please make sure that you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, hit the notification bell. All of that helps to reach in the growth of the channel, and it helps us reach our goal to 10K. So thank you very much. Now, we're going to talk about the Brickgate situation because apparently she's come out with an interview, an exclusive interview she's done with NBC News, and she has proof of police reports and evidence that what she said happened actually happened. Now, I've made a live about this, and I've made a Twitter space about this, getting the community's opinion, asking what they think, what they would do if they were there. So we've talked about this situation, but nevertheless, when there's an opportunity for the dominant society to push a gender divide, some fight between black men and women, if they can simmer up tensions, some gender tensions, they're going to do that every single time. So no surprise, they're back at it again. They have this interview and they're saying a lot of propaganda, anti-straight black male propaganda that they always do to try to make it seem like in this situation, which is bad, nobody's saying it isn't, in this situation, this is like indicative of the relationship, the toxic relationship between black men and women, which they would never, ever, under any other circumstance, do with any other group of people. If this was a group of Hispanics, they would never say this is the relationship between Hispanic men and Hispanic women. They would never say that. If this was a group of Asians, they would never say this is the gender dynamic between Asian men and they would never say that. But of course they're going to say that when it comes to black men and black women. So we're going to look into it and we're going to debunk a lot of the lies and the narratives that are trying to be pushed with this article and with this interview. Brickgate reveals an age-old argument between black men and women. In an exclusive interview, the woman at the center of Brickgate says she suffered daily panic attacks as a result of the familiar backlash hurled at black women when they publicly denounce harm from black men. Okay, the title in and of itself has a lot of propaganda, so you can already imagine this article is going to be loaded with anti-black male propaganda. Let's get into it. Let's call out the elephant in the room before we get started. Look at the people who made this, all right? Two women, Claretta Bellamy and Uzwe Ida Usafo. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Now, I'm not sure exactly where they're from, but I know for a fact they're not from here, all right? So you can already imagine all this anti-black male gender divide tetherism talk is filled in this article. Let's get started. In a social media post, a black woman decried a group of black men standing nearby on the street. Shouting tearfully, the woman, Rhoda Usman, who is known online as Ro Bashi, recounts being attacked by a man who had recently fled. She refused to give the man her phone number. In the video, she appears to have a large knot on her cheek. Quote, "Yo, this man just hit me in the face with a brick and all these black men just watched," Usman said in a clip reposted by the Shade Room, which has more than 1 million likes. While some black women online called out the alleged bystanders' inaction and decision not to intervene, some black men in turn resurfaced Usman's old social media post, accusing her of a history of inflammatory behavior and untrustworthy character. Okay, before we move on, let's just get this out the way. When the situation first went viral, most of the people, men and women, were saying that they would have done something if they were there. Most of the men said that they would have done something if they were there, all right? Now, another thing to keep in mind, there were women there at the incident when she was hit. There were women in the club and outside the club present in the video when she was hit, and I showed it in a live I did. They did not do anything. The women did not do anything to aid, help, comfort her either. So we're not going to turn this into a gender thing the way this article is trying to make it out to be. With the lack of clarity on what went down, Some women and men alike called Brickgate a hoax, comparing Usman to Carly Russell, a black woman who was charged with 2 misdemeanors in July after apologizing for faking her own kidnapping. So, right there, they said black men and women called it a hoax. It wasn't just black men like, man, no, I don't believe a black woman is hurt at all. We hate them. That's not what happened, because it was a lot of unanswered questions. The story did not all the way add up. Nobody really had too many receipts. It was a lot of unanswered questions, which made black men and women say that, I don't really know. This story is seeming kind of suspicious. Now, it continues to say, in an executive interview for the first time since the attack earlier this month, Usman told NBC News that she had suffered daily panic attacks and nightmares as a result of the online vitriol. Usman said there is little she can do to convince people who still do not believe her story. Quote, first they're like, where's the police report? You don't have a police report. I show the police report. Then they're like, oh, it's a fake police report, she said. Then they're like, show us the hospital records. You don't have hospital records. I show them the hospital records. It's fake hospital records. The goalpost will never be met, she said. Now, let's be honest, here's the thing. She took a good couple weeks before she said anything. All right. It's not like she immediately showed the police report or gave a description or showed the hospital records or anything. All right. What happened was she made the video of the incident and then her in the hospital, and then she just kind of disappeared and then took her videos down and just left everybody wondering for a couple weeks. And then she's like, okay, I have the police report now. People didn't immediately start really questioning her out the gate. Majority of the people believed what she had to say. It was only after when people started to kind of think it over, like, damn, it's been a minute and we haven't seen a police report, heard a description of what the guy looked like, the car he got away in. We don't really know a lot in this situation. Then a couple weeks later, you show up with any form of proof at all, and now you're all like, oh my God, people still don't believe me. Well, the thing is that it's because you weren't fully transparent in the beginning. Then it continues to say, NBC News revealed a police report filed on September 3rd and hospital records with the results from a physical exam. Records indicate her left ear had blood coming out of the canal and the left side of her face was swollen from bruising and tenderness. Usman said police have identified a suspect for the assault and the investigation is ongoing. I don't know how I'm going to support myself. I don't know how I'm going to graduate on time. I don't know how I'm going to, feel safe again, she said. It's going to take months, maybe a year, maybe longer in my life to get it back together. See, this is one of the things that make people question her, because I'm going to be very honest with you. She is very dramatic. The whole, I don't know how I'm going to support myself. I can get maybe you need time off from school, so you might not graduate on time. But it's not like she's been crippled or disabled or anything like that. The whole, I don't know how I'm going to support myself. You have a GoFundMe that's over $42,000 right now. So until I guess the swelling or whatever the physical trauma goes down, you do have some money. You have people donating to you, and that's just the GoFundMe. We don't know if you have a Cash App or anything. So let the whole dramatic, I'm just by myself in the world and it's beating me up and defeating me, like that over dramatic stuff is making people not believe your story. And then the whole, I don't know how I'm going to feel safe again. Well, when people pulled up the other videos of you kind of popping off and getting beat up all the time, it's like this seems like a routine where you're out in public and then next thing you know, a bunch of strangers beat you up. So what was the difference before? And I'm not saying that that's justified to any degree at all. I'm saying that these are the things that make people scratch their head and be all like, I don't know if what she's saying is 100% the truth. It continues to say, Brickgate points to a familiar pattern of backlash hurled at black women when they publicly denounce harm from black men. And while it appears to be an isolated act of violence, the back and forth from detractors and supporters of Usman represents the long simmering tensions between black women and men that play out on social media. The source of that continued tension, experts say, is unaddressed anguish from both black men who deal with rigid views of masculinity and black women who feel neglected in light of demeaning stereotypes pinned to them. Okay, all right, let's address this. First off, there is no public backlash that black women get every time they denounce a harm from black men. That is not true. Okay, she got an overwhelming amount of support from both black women and men. The thing is that some people justifiably had questions that were unanswered. The thing is that we're beyond the stage of anything a black woman says, believe it to be absolute truth no matter what. We're beyond that. Black men and women are both beyond that. So when there's questions unanswered, people are going to be like, well, I can't fully support you or get behind you until I know these things. It's not the fact that, well, every time a black woman says anything, people always assume that she's lying. No, that's not really what the case is. And then they're talking about, the tensions on social media. This is an isolated incident. Okay. This is not indicative of black men and black women's relationship with each other, the culture. This isn't indicative of any of that. All right. Black men do not have rigid views of masculinity, whatever that means, whatever the rigid views of masculinity means. They would never say that about any other group of men. And when they say black men, keep in mind, they're talking about black American men. They don't talk about any other black men's masculinity, their rigid views of masculinity. They don't say that. Or women who feel neglected in light of stereotypes. Okay, there's a lot of stereotypes that black women and men go through that we try to push against. Black men are not upholding the stereotypes put upon to black women because black men didn't create those stereotypes. Decades of strife. Here they go. Examples of this dynamic are pervasive. Rapper Tory Lanez was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison last month for shooting rapper Megan Thee Stallion in the foot in 2020. Throughout the trial, online antagonizers repeatedly accused Megan Thee Stallion of lying or wanting to ruin the career of a successful black man. More than 3 decades ago, similar accusations were hurled at Anita Hill when she accused Clarence Thomas, then a nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court, of sexual harassment. Now, before we get started, let's be honest with the whole Megan Thee Stallion, all that stuff. The thing is that in almost similar to this situation, majority of the public opinion was on Megan's side. Most of the people rode with Megan, okay? There were some people who are antagonizing Megan, some people who are saying Megan was lying, both black men and women, but most of the people automatically from jump believed her side. All right. Now, the whole thing with the Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, there was not a whole bunch of people like, you're trying to ruin Clarence Thomas. But there was not a lot of people sitting up there trying to cape for Clarence Thomas. So what they're trying to make it seem is that anytime a black woman is brave enough to come forward about her being harmed by a black man, society shushes her and silences her and says, how dare you say anything about a black man? You're lying. You're trying to ruin him. That's not the case. In fact, it's much so the opposite of the case. Okay, when a black woman accuses a black man of something, the black man has to prove his innocence. She doesn't have to prove it happened. He has to prove his innocence. So let's not use Megan Thee Stallion's case in which Tory Lanez went to prison, and this thing with Anita Hill. Those things don't count. They're not a factor in this situation. And those are bad examples because what you're saying happened is the opposite of what really happened. Now, this is a tweet from a woman named Uju Anya. You can only imagine where she comes from with that type of name. Let's get into it. Let's see the tweet. It says, black men pulling stuff from a black woman's social media they claim shows she didn't deserve protection when a black man smashed her face with a brick is not giving her number. Black men pulling stuff from a black woman's social media they claim show she didn't deserve protection when a black man smashed her face with a brick for not giving her number. Same thing white supremacists do after cops murder black people to claim they deserve to die. Okay. Here's the thing. A lot of the thing is that there was black men who did not say she didn't deserve protection or she didn't deserve that. They're saying that you just cannot expect any single black man to jump in the line of danger for a random black person, black woman. Okay, because they're not even saying do it for a random black person. They're saying for a black woman, any black man around, no matter what the situation is, should hurl himself into danger and risk his life for any black woman he assumes is in danger. That's what black men were saying, not that she deserved to get hit. Now, let's get to the whole police thing. When you see white supremacists do that, they do that to justify the actions of the cop. They're doing that to say the cop did nothing wrong at all. When they pull stuff up from people's social media about them having firearms or weed or whatever, they're doing that to say the cop was right for doing that to that black person. That's not what black men or the black people were doing in this situation. We're just saying like, okay, she put herself in that situation. Her character shows that she puts herself in those situations. Nobody at all was saying, nobody was saying that she deserved to get hit. Nobody serious. There was a couple of trolls, but nobody took them serious. Nobody said she deserved to get hit. Nobody saying the guy should not be punished. That's something the white supremacists do. They say the cop does not deserve to be punished at all. So it's not the same. And on top of that, the woman is okay. She's alive and well and giving interviews. Okay, she did not die. So you're comparing apples to oranges. Film The Color Purple premiered in late 1985. It provoked an uproar among black men and women concerning the depiction of black men's behavior. E.R. Shipp reported in the New York Times in 1986. The film chronicles the life of Celie, played by Whoopi Goldberg, who is abused by her husband, Albert, and finds solace in the sisterhood she cultivates with other black women. At the time, Oprah Winfrey, another star, defended the film, saying it represented one woman's history, not the entire history of black people, and many other black women said it accurately portrayed their experiences. Meanwhile, some black men and black women argued that it was inaccurate and harmful, especially since the film itself and the broader entertainment industry constantly failed to feature positive portrayals of black men. Okay, let's understand history when it comes to this. This is why it's very important to know history. Coming after the imagery, the powerful, righteous imagery of people like Malcolm X, of people like Dr. King, of people like the Black Panther Party, of black men like the Black Panther, and I can go name after name after name, but I'm just giving some very popular examples. Coming after that imagery, what the dominant society decided to strategically do was to tarnish the image of black men, not only to the general public, but also within black society and within black women. It's people like Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg who were there, and they catapulted that with films like The Color Purple. And they had all of the men in The Color Purple were bad men. None of them were good men at all. And it was movies after movies after movies like that about black women just getting abused and beaten up and thrown around. And black men are these bad, monstrous people. Now, Oprah Winfrey has been buddy and all hugged up with racist white folk, didn't say nothing about that. Whoopi Goldberg, the same thing. Her man was wearing blackface and she was cockeyed and kikiing and defended him when society tried to call him out. So they're going to portray something that's going to put a negative image on black men, but when a white man does something, they jump out in defense of that. So this is why people got on them about that, because what they did, it wasn't just about the movie, it wasn't just about that individual story. What they did was they were vessels for the dominant society to push this narrative of the anti-black man devil that they did through other black people, because they can't say, oh, well, it's not racist. Come on, it was black people who made the movie. Now, Oprah Winfrey, ain't she black? She co-signed it. Whoopi Goldberg, she's black, right? She co-signed it. So they willingly were used as vessels to tarnish the image of black men. Fed by trauma. Some black men are reluctant to acknowledge how their behavior may play a role in the trauma of black women, said Mark Anthony Neal, the chair of the Department of African and African American Studies at Duke University. Black women's search for accountability after violence has occurred often gets misconstrued as attacks on the character of black men at large. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Not unless the quote unquote accountability, because they like to do that. Everybody likes to hold black men accountable. We're the people nobody wants to hold anybody else accountable except black men. Let's just be honest with that. But the thing is that the whole holding some black men accountable, y'all really don't do. What y'all like to do is y'all like to pick the worst of the worst black men, and by holding them accountable by proxy, you're demonizing all black men. They'll use very general, broad language about black men and say things like, well, if it doesn't apply to you, you shouldn't be offended. We don't do that with everybody else or anybody else. You do it with black men and say, well, black men just don't want their character to beat up. They don't want to be held accountable. You guys have this very rare and particular way of holding black men accountable that nobody has with anybody else. Quote, there's a generation of black men who, particularly in the post-Obama years, have not had the kind of life and professional success that they want, Neal said. And sometimes they see black women promoted in certain kind of ways. They're really in their feelings that as black men, they're being left behind. This disaffected block of black men may feel less convicted to stand up for black women, Neal said. Okay, so here they go with the strong black women make black men feel so insecure and so left behind and weak. No, is that the post-Obama years, since you're going to bring that up, it's the fact that black men understand what pandering is. And you all pander to black women. Like, they can't even specifically say how black women are promoted in certain ways. No, you guys are pandered to. Because black women are not doing better than black men. Let's just stop that lie. I showed the statistics in the other video before. That's just statistically not true. That's something all these academics be saying, and all these professors be all like, man, black women out here killing the game. That's a lie. Okay, they're lying to black women about that. That's just not the truth. And black men don't care to be pandered to. It's not because we're insecure that black women are out here shining and we just can't keep up. That's just not the truth. Usman called the reactions to her case, however, displays of black male fragility. Quote, I'm an independent, strong, educated, successful black woman, she said. That makes a lot of them just infuriated by my existence alone. Okay, we gonna stop that. Nobody is infuriated by this woman's existence. This whole I'm independent and I'm strong. Well, all that independence and all that strength went out the window when you were looking for assistance from the black men around you. If that makes them infuriated by your independence and strength, why are you calling on and getting upset that these strangers did not run to your aid? See, we're going to have to stop that. Okay, when a woman is doing good, oh yeah, I'm strong and independent and I can do everything. I'm just so educated and successful. And then when the men don't step into the man role and protecting and providing, oh my God, I just don't have a safe place to be feminine and I just get beat up everywhere I go. I can't believe it. No, nobody is like that. The whole people are beating me up because I'm just so beautiful and glorious and I'm just so smarter than everybody and educated and successful, and that triggers them because they're not as great as I. No. Okay, because we've seen other cases where you have gotten beat up allegedly in public and then started GoFundMe's. So if you're so strong and educated and successful, why you keep getting beat up all the time? That's what I want to know. It continues to say, quote, everyone's like, oh, come on, tell me what you did to him. What did you do? Did you taunt him? She said. It's so ironic to me that they're like, I can't believe someone would do something that violent for no reason. But then you're online being violent for no reason. People are calling my son's school saying that they're going to come and violate the R word, violate my son, she said. Somebody sent me some soup and was like, choke and die on this B word. Okay. If they did any of that stuff, nobody is condoning that. Nobody approves of that. That is absolutely terrible. Anybody who's doing anything like that should definitely face the consequences for their actions. Now, the thing is that like, before this, I'm gonna be honest, I did not know she had a son. Didn't know she had a child. And somebody sending you soup, like somebody sent you some soup and said they want you to choke and down on the soup. I mean, I guess it could happen, but stuff like this is the extra stuff. Like, now because I said I was online and because of what happened, people want to kidnap me and they want to rip my arms off and feed it to my dogs. Like, when people say extra stuff, when you putting a little bit of extra sauce unnecessary in there, it's like, I don't know. It seems like you're trying to sell this a little bit too hard. That's this is the stuff when people say stuff like this. Now, I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm just going to be honest, from what I've seen of her and her reactions, the odds of this being 100% accurate is slim, in my opinion. So when other people see stuff like this, be all like, this woman is very dramatic and extra. It makes people think that she's not being honest. It continues to say, to some black women, though, silence after a public outcry can be disheartening, especially considering the disproportionate rates of domestic violence they face. 2020 data from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence shows that 45.1% of black women have experienced intimate partner violence, and that estimated 51.3% of black women homicides are related to intimate partner violence. In some cases where black women have been criticized for coming forward, they are treated less as victims and face scrutiny as if they, quote, somehow at fault for the violence done against them, said Shaniqua Roach, assistant professor of Black Studies and Gender Studies at Brandeis University. Okay, here's the thing. That's really an inaccurate exaggeration of this situation and a lot of situations. Nobody's criticizing black women for coming forward. Nobody's saying like, well, if only you wasn't wearing that, he wouldn't have hit you. Well, why didn't you give him your number? Nobody is victim blaming, which is essentially what they're talking about. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, and I'm not saying that that's appropriate in any case. Nobody is saying that. But that's not what this situation is. What they're trying to do is they're trying to use this very isolated, weird, rare event and make it seem like this is indicative of the situation and relationships between black men and women, and it's not. Okay, now we can talk about domestic violence, and that's bad, that's terrible, and the people who do that, the people who put their hands on their women, all of that stuff is absolutely wrong, and they should face 100% punishment for what they do. All right. They should not be able to avoid accountability, to dodge accountability or anything. I have never condoned that. But the thing is that that's, first off, this wasn't a situation of intimate domestic violence. Number one, she said she didn't know the guy. The guy was asking for her number. So you're trying to tie in and make this correlation between domestic violence in this situation, and it's not the case. And another thing is that when you bring stuff up like this, you say these things and then you make a lot of general statements against black men. This is why a lot of black men are all like, okay, we can get behind being against domestic violence, but once you try to kind of punish and put this jacket on all black men because a single black man or a few black men have done that, that's where we push against that. It continues to say, Brian Ellison, founder of the Black Man Project, an organization that provides group therapy for black male youth, said he believes misunderstanding between black men and women stems from unresolved past trauma. Quote, I feel that's where a lot of things get lost in translation, Ellison said. We're trying to compare the pain that we both feel. In reality, we are both hurt. Some of black women's frustrations are rooted in feeling rejected by black men, according to Danae Stewart and Samuel Candler Dobbs, professor of religion and African American studies at Emory College of Arts and Science. She referred to general observation and data showing that black men are twice as likely as black women to marry someone outside their race. Okay, we're going to save the whole interracial dating thing for another video. I'm going to do a whole video dedicated to the data and all of the narratives and rumors around that, because that jacket has been put on black men for the longest time, that we desire a non-black woman, and the only reason we're with a black woman is because we had to settle and we just didn't have the opportunity. So I'm going to do a whole video on that separately. But this is one of the things that black men don't like about these college professors and these studies and stuff like that, is because they put a very anti-black spin on a lot of what they anti-black male spin on a lot of what they try to say. Now, just look at this. It says she referred to general observation in data. General observation about what? Because most black men are with black women. Most black men date black women. Most black men marry black women. Most black men prefer black women. So what general observation are you citing with this? Which your general observation is relative, okay? That's your own personal opinion. And then you're using data, and the data you're using is trying to paint this narrative twice as likely. You can say 4 is twice as likely than 2. Well, yeah, I guess that is the case, but 4 is still an incredibly low number. So when they say things like twice as likely without showing you the numbers, it can paint this picture that black men are just going out in mass getting with non-black women, which is not the case. It continues to say, racial stereotypes painting black women as aggressive and sexually promiscuous also, quote, run rapid in American culture and even among black men themselves, she said. As a result, black women have pushed against these stereotypes while simultaneously having to be the leaders of their household, which in return can, quote, sometimes make black men feel inadequate. Okay, before we even go to the next paragraph, let's say this. The whole stereotypes, yes, there are negative stereotypes against black women. We push against that on this channel. Black men push against that in society. Black women push against that, as they should. All right. The whole, it runs rapid among black men. What do you mean by that? What stereotypes run rapid among black men that if we're going to play that game, there's a lot of stereotypes that black women have that run rapid about black men. So let's not play that game that black men are perpetuating the same negative stereotypes that the dominant society is, because we've been the only group of people who've been pushing against that. And when we do, black men in general get told to mind our business and stay in our place. So let's not act like that. We're not going to be dishonest. And then and they've had to be the leaders of their household. We're going to have to stop that. We're going to have to stop that, because you're not making black men feel inadequate. You're not being the leader of a household with another black man in it. You mean you're being the leader of a household with you and a bunch of children. You and your own children. Of course, you're the leader. You're the mom. When a man is in the household, you don't have to be the leader. So they're talking about single mothers raising their own kids. That's not them being the leaders of their household, the way they're trying to paint it out to be. Because they're making it seem like black men are just not keeping up to the high standards that black women are reaching to. That's just not the truth. Continuing, during the post-slavery era, black families were found upon heteronormative patriarchal structures, Stewart said. So when you hear stuff like this, you already know where she's coming from. You already know she's been indoctrinated. And a lot of these people who've been indoctrinated, they have a very bad anti-straight black male agenda that they are constantly pushing. When they're talking about heteronormative patriarchal structures that, let them tell it, did not exist prior to slavery. But let's continue. Many free black people went on a desperate search to find their family members who were separated during slavery, a time when black family units confronted constant disruption. Marriage was used as a way to help strengthen those weakened black family structures. Yet Stewart said it was a, quote, landmark moment when black people began to internalize and emulate white Western understanding of patriarchy, which are reflected in the dynamics of black relationships today. Young black boys are socialized to believe they must, quote, be the bigger person and leaders in their relationship with women, said Roderick L. Corey, assistant professor in the Department of Human Development and Family Science at the University of Delaware. Okay, come on, all this, the Western understanding of patriarchy. Do y'all not understand world history? Because let these professors tell it. I mean, I swear they give anybody degrees nowadays. Let these professors tell it. Men leading their family in a marriage, that did not exist prior to the Western patriarchy. Let them tell that. Let them tell it. Men being the leaders in society did not exist at all prior to slavery. That everybody in the world was gender fluid prior to slavery and colonization, which is historically inaccurate. Okay, that's historically inaccurate. The world has been that way. It continues to say, as young girls come of age and may express self-empowerment, black boys may feel conflicted about their roles. Quote, I'm supposed to protect you. I'm supposed to defend you. But also, I'm noticing that you have a lot of capacity to protect yourself and defend yourself, Carey said. This is kind of comical when you really think about it, considering the actual incident that they're using this on is an incident where a black woman was looking for black men to come protect her and defend her. And they're talking about, yeah, black men are insecure and they feel conflicted because black women do such a great job protecting themselves. In the same article, you guys are talking about how black men didn't do anything and let a black woman tend to her own defense. So you guys try to push this narrative and it's backfiring because the situation you're trying to use this on isn't even mixing with the narrative that you're trying to push out. And another thing that I think is interesting is the whole insecure about your roles, that the other person is so independent that they don't need you. They only say that when it comes to black men. Notice how they don't ever say black women are insecure, that a black man is so successful and doesn't need her. They don't ever push that narrative. They only push the narrative that black women are so great, it makes black men feel lesser than. They don't ever say that about successful black men and insecure black women. Because let them tell it, black women have nothing to be insecure about because they're all doing better than black men. They don't ever say black women are insecure about their roles because black men are learning how to cook and clean for themselves and black women are feeling replaced and unneeded. Continuing, the path to healing for black men. Notice they're just saying black men, not people. Black men, social media acts as a reform where they can go to, quote, air their grievances about women, Richardson said. She cited online communities of men that created and shared content grounded in misogyny, Social media, she added, has also generally been used as an instrument to spread hate and propaganda. Now, what's interesting about this is we have a whole bunch of pages on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter that's spreading hate about black men from, then we're going to be honest, from black women. We got a whole bunch of divester pages. We got a whole bunch of pages on all of these social media sites with large platforms. Many people watching live, many people subscribed and all that, but you're going to paint the narrative that black men use social media to talk about women. Women don't use social media. Black women don't use social media to talk about black men. It's the other way around. Let you tell it. Then it continues to say, black women expressing their need for protection are also looking for allyship and loyalty from black men, which they don't often perceive, Richardson said. Now, let me ask you, if we're going to talk about allyship and loyalty, which black men should have allyship and loyalty to black women, but let's not act like on social media, black women have this abundance of allyship and loyalty to black men, especially more than black men express to women. So if we want to have the mature conversation and say black men and women need to express more allyship and loyalty to each other, I would be there for that conversation. But I'm not here for the conversation of black women are looking for these things and black men are denying them. That's just not the truth. Continuing, Stewart, who is currently teaching a class at Emory University on black love, said there needs to be more feminist and womanist black men. Oh God, please, 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 y'all do not take that. See, this is why a lot of black men specifically are turned away from colleges and stuff like that, because y'all have this very bad anti-straight black male hatred that lingers over you like a dark cloud, and when you teach it in the classroom, it shows. It's very potent and it shows. She goes on to say, American society, especially black men, do not listen to black women when we say, please don't harm us, Stewart said. Please don't participate in patriarchy. Please don't be sexist. Lord have mercy on all the straight black male students who have ever studied under her. Can you believe and notice that they point the finger especially and they highlight black men. When they talk about all the oppression and the reasonable and realistic grievances black women have in this country, they'll say, yeah, American society, which is white society, they treat them bad. But oh my God, those black men, they're just the worst. I mean, yeah, they deal with racism here or there, but the black man, he's just at the top. He's nobody's worse than him. They always do that. What do you mean, especially black men? Especially black men, as if we're putting some extra level of oppression than anybody else is putting on you, when black men are the only group of people, period, who are looking out for black women at all. Continuing, while online friction between black men and women reflects some of the realities of what it means to be black right now, it does not necessarily mean these tensions translate uniformly to real-world dynamics. Quote, what social media allows you to do is have a conversation with folks you'd never have if they were sitting in front of you, Neil said. If we don't look at anti-blackness as an attack on all black bodies, regardless of gender and sexuality, these conversations as they play out in social media really aren't productive. Stewart said black men and women continue to grapple with their gender roles and how those roles relate to each other. In order to ease these tensions, the black community needs to have a, quote, long conversation about gender identity, and our worth as persons, she said. No matter how we identify, that is long overdue. What does this have to do with gender identity, and what is all this what does that have to do with the situation with Brickgate? That has nothing to do with the situation. They are putting a whole bunch of these agendas, they're pushing agendas with this situation. The interview didn't even go this far. We have to have a long conversation about gender and gender identity. About why? No, we don't. No, we don't. It continues to say, as people of African descent in this country, we are most anxious and conflicted and torn in feelings of inadequacy, not about our race, but about our gender, Stewart said. So let her tell it. Gender is the biggest thing when it comes to black people. As descendants of Africans, quote unquote, in this country, gender is why we feel inadequate. It's not about race. So why'd you bring up Africa if it's not about race? Because women come from all over the world. So why'd you bring up Africa if this has nothing to do with race? It's about gender. We feel inadequate about our gender, which means she's saying black men, because she wouldn't say that about black women. She's saying straight black men feel inadequate about their gender. Continuing, quote, I am 100% convinced of that. And it puts us on divided sides of an issue. Okay, for the sake of the argument, let's say what happened to her was 100, what she said happened, 100% the truth. Let's say that for the sake of the argument. The reason why anybody was questioning what she had to say is because what she was saying and some of the moves she made, we didn't see a police report initially. We didn't see until now. We didn't see any credible news source report on it. The only thing we saw was the Shade Room on Instagram post the video in TikTok. That's the only thing we saw. We didn't see the hospital records. We didn't hear a description of the guy. We didn't know exactly what happened, how many people were out there. We didn't see any footage, any like security footage or anything. So we didn't have anything at all to go on except her word. And then when receipts came out that she, she can be a prankster, and I'm not saying that she deserved that to happen if she was a prankster or whatever the case is, because in that situation, it wasn't a prank. But when receipts came out that she was a prankster, and then when other receipts came out that she had gotten into almost identical scenario in 2020, where she was allegedly getting into it at night when she was out partying with a bunch of strangers, and then they beat her up and her face is all bruised and swollen, and then she's making a video again talking about y'all want to beat me up because I'm so great and I'm so successful and this and this. And people compare that video in 2020 to the video she just posted in 2023. It made people question the validity of what she had to say. That's the reason. It's not because, well, black women just always get ignored and our pain and our suffering is just never paid attention to. That's not the truth, because we're going to have to be honest. People do lie. People lie about those situations. Just like the situation with Carly Russell. It was interesting that they brought that up because the entire community got behind that initially. And then when things started to, unfold and people started to see like, hey, this story don't really add up, then people started to question it. And then before she came out as admitting that she lied, people were like, oh, you guys are just assuming she lied because she's a black woman. And then she told the truth that she lied. We're beyond the era of believing that every single black woman's story is 100% the truth, because it's not. The next part about this is that this is not at all indicative of the relationship between black men and women to any degree. When the video first came out and it first went viral, most black men and black women were saying, oh, they would have done something if they were there. Most black men were saying that the men there should have done something, that they would have done something if they were there. Most black men were saying that they would not just sit there and watch a woman get hit in the head with a brick. Most black men were saying that. So if that was the reaction from most black men, there were a handful who said, okay, even though I probably would have done something to prevent that, even though he should be punished for assaulting that lady, that does not mean that you should just leave the house with the expectation that every man around you is going to jump in the line of fire to defend you. That's what initially started the conversation. It was a TikTok live that started that conversation of, yeah, I understand she was hurt. Yeah, that was wrong, but you can't just expect strangers to come out and save you at the end of the day. You have to move more careful than that, more cautious than that. That's not saying you don't just deserve protection because you made some pranks on TikTok, but a whole bunch of people started gaslighting that and started using a bunch of straw man argument logic and started saying that, oh, so you mean to tell me if a woman isn't submissive, she should be hurt and harmed? Which is not what anybody was saying. That's not what anybody was saying. People were just saying that women should be more cautious and aware of their surroundings, especially late at night. That's what they were saying. Nobody was saying she deserved anything. Nobody was saying the person who hit her should be let free and let go and nothing should happen. Nobody was making that argument. And then the next thing is that, okay, you want to talk about gender roles and gender identity. This is the part where that logic starts to break down, because in the situation where you talked about the black men, and I played the video before in the live I did, there were black women outside. There were black women inside. No black woman did anything to comfort her. Nobody even expected any of the women to do anything. The only people who were expected to have any sort of reaction, to do anything to help, were the men. So you want the men to come and save the day. That is your expectation. You want that to happen. And then on the other hand, you want to be all like, women don't need men because we're strong, educated, and independent, and men are feeling inadequate, and men are insecure about our power and our black girl magic. You want both sides. Okay, you want to have your cake and eat it too. That logic doesn't work out. You can't sit up there and brag about we're strong and independent and we don't need a man, and all of these men are scared because we don't need their protection. And then when something dangerous happens, you're all like, where are all the men with the protection? That logic just contradicts itself. That logic doesn't add up. And then when you talk about gender identity, if we're going to play that very, very silly game, we're going to play that game. Did anybody ask the gender identity of what you assumed were men? Because if we want to play this, you got to ask the pronoun game. We're going to play that little pronoun game. Nobody was asking their pronouns before you expected them to naturally, because they're males, act like men in that situation. So it's this thing where you want it to be one way, where the gender roles are just fluid and they're non-existent and they don't matter, except when you want them to matter, and then everybody else around you has to get on board with them mattering because you want them to matter. The world just does not work that way. You can't say things like men need to be more feminine. In the teaching, they are like, men need to be more feminist and womanist. Men need to be more feminine, and all this fragile, rigid masculinity that they have needs to calm down. All that stuff is terrible, is bad for men. Okay, when you have stuff like that, if men say, you know what, all this masculinity and fighting and trying to be rough and leaders, we're going to stop that, and we're just going to just chill out and just do us. And then when you want black men to do that, then you're all like, man, the black men ain't stepping up. The black men ain't doing what all these other men are doing. Stop. We're going to stop that. Stop. That logic does not add up. It does not work together. You can't have your cake and then eat it too. Those are two completely different things that you want to exist in one world, and it's not going to do that. It's not going to work. We're going to make a whole nother video on the black men date or marry twice as much out their race as black women do, because I got a bunch of statistics and studies and stuff like that, but we're going to section that off for an entirely different video. All right, we're not even going to touch too much on that. But the whole black women feel rejected and all, like, no. Let's not act like there's a plethora of black men, even half, even a quarter of black men who prefer non-black women to black women. Let's not act like that. All right, we're going to save that for another video. But that whole narrative, the anti-black man narrative of our observation and data, we're going to save that for another video. But family, I want to know what you guys think about the situation. What do you guys think about the interview? What do you guys think about the situation with her getting hit and what the people should have done? What do you think about the propaganda in the gender division propaganda that they're putting out in this interview and in this article? Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments section below. Also, you should be following me on my various social media platforms, which is Afro Elite on Instagram and the Afro Elite on Twitter. Also, please, before you leave, do not forget to hit that subscribe button so we can reach our goal to 10K. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, hit that share button, leave a comment. All of these things help the reach and the growth of the channel. And for every single thing that you all do, I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, with that being said, my brothers and my sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all, and you all have a good one.